Okay, everyone okay? So, good evening, councillors, officers. Welcome to this meeting of Sandwich Town Council's Finance and General Purposes Committee. Item 1 is apologies for absence received.
No apologies have been received.
No apologies, thank you. Item 2 is declarations of interest, to receive any declarations of disclosable pecuniary interest from members in respect of business to be transacted on the agenda. Anyone? Anything to declare? No, thank you. Item 3 is minutes of the Finance and General Purposes Committee, to receive and approve the minutes of the meeting held on the 16th of October and to consider any matters arising. So that's attachment 1. Do we have anything on page 1?
Sorry, I wasn't in attendance, but it does say date and time, next meeting, 18th December. But yeah, presumably it should have been
Oh, okay.
20th of November.
That's a typo.
No.
Yeah, it should have been.
That is correct, because that's the agenda for this meeting. So the next meeting of this will be on the 18th of December.
Yeah, there's two sets of minutes, so there's 1A and 1B, two separate meetings.
The minutes of the meeting say the next meeting is on the 18th of December. It should have been today.
That's correct, that's a typo, needs to be corrected.
Okay, anything on page 2?
Alright, correct.
Anything on page 3? Nothing. So, are you happy to receive and approve those minutes?
I wasn't here, so I can't propose them.
Anyone to propose? I'll propose that for you. Anyone to second it?
Happy to second.
All those in favour?
I wasn't there, but
So that's passed with 1 abstention. Item 4 is public participation. A 20-minute session is set aside for members of the public to make representations in respect of business on the agenda. Do we have any members of the public?
Sorry, could we just roll back? Apologies. There's an agenda item we've got this evening, which is item relates to fees for the Guildhall
Oh
itself.
yes, okay.
That, as it really should be under STBS authority,
Yeah,
will not be discussed tonight. It will be deferred to the next full STBF
yes,
meeting.
yes. I should have mentioned that at the beginning. So the Guildhall comes under STBF. The forecourt is separate, that's on the agenda tonight. For public participation, we don't have anyone for that section. Next item is the payment schedules and finances. 5A is to receive the Sandwich Town Council payment schedule for the end of October. So I'll look at that first. That's item attachment 2A. Is there anything arising on that payment schedule?
No, I'm happy to propose that one.
You happy to propose? I'll second that. All those in favour?
I'm not sure you can, because I think some of the expenses are for you.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, it's about mayor's
I
expenditure.
don't think you can, actually.
I'll propose it.
That's all.
It's reimbursement of
Oh, yeah,
expenses.
thank you for that.
So all those in favour? Okay, it's carried. 1 abstention from the mayor, I believe. The next one is to receive the Town Council payment schedule for mid-November 24. That's item 5B and it's attachment 2B. Any matters to comment on that schedule?
I'm happy to propose this one.
Propose it.
Happy to second.
All those in favour? Okay, thank you. The next item is the draft budget for 25-26. Members to debate the first draft budget includes which includes the individual council request for the Sandwich Town Council budget. So I should say that this is very much a first stab at the budget. It will be, if necessary, discussed at the next meeting so that we can hopefully agree a budget in December. I think the very latest we can agree is early January.
Mid-January.
Mid-January, because that's when we have to make the precept request to BBC. So I think Karen, the RFO, wishes to just make a brief statement to
Yeah.
summarise the revised spreadsheet that's been circulated tonight.
Since the original budget was sent out, an error was found. I corrected it, and it means that the precept rise has come down to an estimated 5.7%. The only two figures on the spreadsheet that are different are the total expenditure figure and the precept figure. Everything else is the
So
same.
can you just clarify what the error was?
It was the expenditure total was picking up some reserves that I had
okay.
elsewhere in the spreadsheet.
So the total expenditure is 404,112, and that's the figure that's changed.
Yes.
And to balance that with income, that requires now a precept of 319,088 instead of, I believe it was 338, which is an increase of 5.7%. Now last year we had an increase of 5%. My view is that roughly a 6% increase is reasonable. It represents what an increase for the average for a bandy household of around £10 or £11 a year. I think the 12% was £15 a year. So I'm assuming that
That's, yeah.
5.7%.
I've got a figure of £148 as the bandy precept,
Yeah.
so
An extra
5.7% of that would be about the £10 mark.
Yeah.
It's £8.15
£8.50.
if it's the figure on the spreadsheet.
Okay, so, well, let's consider this new spreadsheet, and any comments we can go.
Can we talk about the
table.
precept first, because it's not the detail, it's
Yeah,
the strategy. So
Suggest that.
I don't want us to pat ourselves on the back thinking, well, phew, it's 12%, now it's 5.7. I think we should still be challenging ourselves vigorously with two figures in mind. One is that the annual average inflation rate next year is expected to be around 3.1%. That might be something we should look towards, but certainly the one thing that maybe we really should take into account is the cap that's been applied by central government on local councils, which is 5%. So I think we still should do some more work around this to at least get it to 5% or under, but that's my personal view.
Okay.
Rather than say 5.7, job done.
Okay. Councillor Carter.
Yeah, so I think though that we also need to have a reality check, because I mean this council is not an ordinary town or parish council, is it? I mean we've all got to accept that we've got exceptionally high overheads, and in particular I know this Guildhall comes under STBF, but we've got to understand the town council's contribution to that and to the position that it's in. And so not only with the cap that you mentioned, you know, there's other factors as well to do with staffing, national insurance. This is it's a very difficult economic time, and the one thing I don't want to see is I don't want to see us cutting it too lean, so that we then have to dip into the Tollbridge reserves to top us up 6 months in or something like that, or 9 months. It'll probably be a bit later in the year. So I'd like us to be realistic and plan ahead with what's actually happening. So as you said, with the inflation, with the staffing and budgets and everything like that. I know it's been forecast, but I don't want us to leave ourselves too lean. I mean, all of us that came here tonight, we were sort of going, oh, it's going to be 12%.
I was never going to accept
No.
that
No.
personally.
But
No,
now
it's,
it's
and all-
5.7. I would be
Yeah.
quite happy to be 0.7 over. Thank you.
Councillor Pennington.
Yes, thank you. I would be grateful for clarification if the 5% cap also applies to parish and town councils. I mean, it may be that expenditure in the past, which has normally been financed by DDC and KCC, will not be made in future, so I think we need to take that into consideration.
Exactly.
Is the 5% cap
It's the amount
the
that-
whole package of
It's what local councils and county councils and other
And
larger
districts,
councils
isn't
are
it?
Districts.
allowed to increase their
Yeah.
council tax by. So presets out with that.
Yeah. So if a precept increase for a parish
For
increased by
parish.
200%,
Yes.
that wouldn't be affected.
Can I seem to recall seeing some figures here that our precept was about 3 or 4 times the average,
Yes.
which is a heck of a
Exactly.
and that, Councillor Carter, I understand the point you're making, but can we really justify 3 or 4 times the average?
No.
I don't think we can.
So our ambition should be see what we can do to.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
And I think the other thing to point out is that year on year we've been making massive contributions from the Tollbridge Fund to support the Guildhall.
well, that's what I mean. That's what I mean. That's what I don't want to continue. You see, so
Yeah.
and with all due respect, when Councillor Black talks about the average, what average are we talking about? Are there any other councils, town councils out there that have up to say 15 assets and 2 charity trusts linked to them and a building like this? I'm only reiterating what I said before. As a mayor, I've been to a vast number of councils over this year and we by far have got the largest overheads because of how we are set up. So I would not call ourselves an average town council.
No, I didn't suggest we were. I merely made the point that we are well in excess, and I can think of a number of town councils that have got historic building to deal with. In fact, I've been on a couple of tours of them in various places. Just my concern is how this presents to our taxpayers.
That's
It's valid.
Yeah.
Councillor August.
Yes, I've got some sympathy with that comment, but I'm now going to ask a question which indicates another argument. We're talking about an increase for Band B properties of between £10 and £11 a year, is that right?
£8.15.
£8.15. So that's considerably less than £1 a month, an additional £1 a month. Which seems to me to be manageable, but I would like to know if we've got any data on how many Band D properties there are in Sandwich within our
The
colony.
tax base is 2,114.49,
Right,
and that
But-
is how we calculate the precept.
yes, I
But
realise.
I'm not sure how that relates to the number of Band D properties.
No, and we don't have any data of that. I mean, we could find it, presumably. I mean, I'd just like to know how many households will be impacted by this increase, seriously, because it doesn't seem to me that an additional 60p a month is actually that painful. Although I take the point that Councillor Black is making, that we are among the highest precept, I think in Kent actually.
In Kent, certainly.
Yeah. It's not.
I,
Sorry, Councillor Breed.
Thanks, thank you. I've been looking at the budget and I hear what you say, and I would just like to circulate a document which originally was prepared by the RFO for the HR meeting, because I think it's really important that we understand the allocation of the staff, because the staff is the biggest part of our budget. Overall, we turn over something like 640,000, and 60% of that goes on staff. So we really need to understand how that allocation is kind of made up.
Just ask the chairman, sorry to ask, what's the validity of this document being passed around when the other documents have already
I
been
think,
distributed?
I mean, I'm happy to accept it, but we can't consider it as part of the
No.
papers for the meeting. I think by all means, Councillor Green, you can circulate it for the next meeting.
Well, if you want to, these numbers you'll pick up from the budget, if you look at the budget at the top that the RFO has put out. And whilst you say this, the Sandwich Town Council has to cope with all of these buildings, of the 380 odd £1,000 that we spend on staff, only £118,000 is charged to Sandwich Town Council. The bulk of it is charged to Sandwich Guildhall and the Tollbridge Fund. And I think it's very important that we're clear about this, because we've got other things like Monk's Wall and Maddox, where the officers are involved in work, but no monies are being recovered for the time that's been spent on those cost centres. And I think we need to consider whether some monies should be charged in the budget going forward, because that would help address the problem of reducing the overall burden on the precept.
Yeah, I mean, you've raised issues that we've been talking about for the past 2 years, that these are fundamental issues about the cost of this building, about the contribution we get from the Tollbridge Fund. I mean, Karen gave me the figures today. I mean, over the last 10 years, we've been probably averaging 50,000 a year coming from the Tollbridge Fund to prop up the Guildhall effectively. But the working group that you chair is really been tasked with looking at that fundamental
And that's why
relationship.
I'm looking into this as
Yeah.
part of that, and I'll
Yeah.
report in full at a later stage.
Yeah,
But
it's
we
not
need to
something I
understand
think we can resolve tonight, because it's a longer term structural issue.
Can
Which,
we remember that we shouldn't really be getting into the detail in terms of the Guildhall? That is an STBF issue.
Exactly.
We should really focus on the STC elements of the budget setting
Yeah.
here.
Well, so the question to this group is, are we happy with the allocations to the STC of the town clerk 50%, the RFO 40% of the time, the assistant clerk 50%, the receptionist and administration 50%, and the property manager 25%, and the public conveniences and Guildhall assistant of 80%. There's no caretaker. Are those percentages reasonable? Does this group accept those, because they are based on the RFO's judgment?
Can I just add
Please.
that STC pays 10% of caretaking and cleaning. That's not included in these figures, but that is what they pay. They pay an extra 10% of the caretaking and cleaning.
Also, I think, I'm sorry to butt in, but I think none of us have got the background information. As has been said earlier, this needs further investigation, really, doesn't it? Because, for instance, even if you ask me as mayor, I wouldn't know, you know, how much the town clerk, the percentage split on STBF or STC. So,
Mr. Mayor, you're her line manager and you're her supervisor, so
but
if you don't know,
exactly,
how are we to know?
it depends, yeah, because where are the figures for any hourly rate put in for any tasks? So there's no calculation, is there? So for instance, without getting into the detail, which I think we should get off immediately as quick as possible, the town clerk is not, as far as I know, she hasn't told me, that she's recording that she's done a task for 2.5 hours that's on the STBF. So any percentages that are presented either on your paper or from the RFO must be general estimates, because they're not based on any data, are they?
But this, I think this is the first time people are actually seeing this, so it's the transparency of it. And yes, unless everybody fills out a weekly allocation sheet to be able to allocate their time correctly, this is a best judgment guess. But some of the principles behind it, do we all feel comfortable with these percentages, as I said? Have we got the right cost centres? Should we have Maddox there? Should we have the Monk's Wall there?
Yeah.
You know, even if it only takes 10%, it's 10%. It's 10% of nearly a £400,000 budget.
But at the end of the day, because we've got quite a lot to get through, at the end of the day, we've got somebody doing a 35-hour week to keep this machine going. And as long as the machine goes and it's productive and it breaks even, then that's what we should be doing. I think this, what you're suggesting, Councillor Breen, is a great idea. I agree it needs investigation, but I don't think the discussion should be tonight on that.
Yeah.
That's
So
all.
I ask then if, and I understand if a paper is tabled at a meeting, it's a bit difficult to discuss it in detail. But when will we be able to discuss it? Because I think some of these points are quite fundamental, and we ought to be clear when we will be discussing it, because we have got two challenges as I see it. Fortunately, we've been found that the precept could drop significantly, and that's very welcome news. But secondly, we still are maybe a little bit high, and we still can't get away from the fact that even with all our complexities, we are an extremely expensive town council. The question is, do we carry on with that, and are there ways to reduce it, which I think is what Councillor Green is trying to say is realistic and financially sound ways of doing it. So when do we discuss them? Because obviously we've got a timetable for the budgeting process, which is kind of inflexible, isn't it?
Yeah. So I think it's a useful discussion we've had.
Yeah.
We need to get into the detail.
Yeah.
What I would say is there is an amount of detail that all of us, I'm sure, will be making comments on that will influence the budget recalibration that will be undertaken between now and the next meeting. I think we need to get that pushed on. Playing back to what you've presented, Peter, that has to be formally put into the process rather than tabled here as an ad hoc paper. And the question is whether you feel that the working group is the right place to develop this over a 6-month period, or whether it's feasible to go between this meeting and the next meeting of this group and come up with a proposal that actually can be understood and can change the picture. It's how much time would you need?
There's
Or
not
us,
a lot.
or
There's
us
not a lot more I can do. We've
No.
got to agree general principles. Can we charge Maddox? Yes or no, going forward next year. Can we charge monies to the Monk's Wall?
Yeah.
Yes or no.
Yeah.
Those are the types of things. And are we comfortable with these allocations? Because you say the complexities of Sandwich Town Council, but we've offloaded 2/3 of the staff bill out of Sandwich Town Council into the Toll Bridge Fund on this.
Historically, yeah.
Well, no, not that's what's proposed
Yeah.
at the moment.
Yeah, but
And
it's
it-
all,
it-
but it's
excuse me,
bringing,
it went
back
to the
this
HR
happened.
committee in October.
Yeah, but it's not
This
changing.
paper went to the
Yeah, but it's not
HR.
changing the past, Peter. This is what we are running with based on the history of this council.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
I
So we need
understand
to
that, but
Focus and
that's
redirect.
what I'm asking for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's not something I can do on my own.
No.
I think you're raising really valid points, and we've been talking about this for the past couple of years, but something would have to give. If the precept is less, then where either you cut the staff or you increase the subsidy from the Tollbridge Fund, or from the Maddox, or from other sources, or increase income. So it's all a big ball which has to be filled around with. I mean, I think the discussion should have happened much sooner than tonight, because tonight all we can do is deal with the papers we've been given and come to a decision. But I think if the Finance and Assets Working Group can meet between now and the next meeting, then maybe some of that discussion could take
Sorry,
place.
Martin, just in terms of Maddox, the issue is we can't as a council say Maddox has to pay.
No.
We have to go through a process of Maddox meeting, so this takes time. So don't think we can suddenly say we will take X number of £1,000 from Maddox to pay for staff.
I'm not suggesting Maddox, because that's not in the.
Well, it's been mentioned more than once.
And just
I haven't mentioned it.
adding to Councillor Tuker's, I think there's so much to this to investigate, because really, as was discussed a couple of times at previous meetings, is there may be a necessity with Maddox to turn this super tanker around and employ somebody part-time
I agree.
or
That's-
what have you to manage that.
Yeah.
So if we spend considerable time saying, well, was it 5% or 10% on Maddox, that's not going to help us going forward. But perhaps engaging with the Maddox committee to say, should a person be working on that 10 hours a month and be paid X amount from the Maddox Trust, then that is a more positive way to take things forward, which takes pressure off of what's there existing already.
The final point I would make as well with this list is it lists out all of the current staff. But do we need any more staff? Social media person? And I think these are some of the big things that this committee needs to address.
Well, I agree.
Please chip in.
So,
Firstly, I do think it's important, and I've said this before, that we develop a multi-annual planning framework for budgets, and I think this is precisely the kind of issue that should be addressed in that framework. It's a bit like driving along at the moment without your headlights on, you know, I think we need something like a main beam to see further ahead, so that we can see where we're going and address this kind of issue. And we can address longer term requirements, such as, do we need to recruit more staff? Are there really tasks that aren't being done that need to be done?
quite quickly.
Second thing is, in relation to average precepts, it is, I think, helpful, if it's possible, to identify towns that have a similar structure and nature as we have, to act as sort of comparators, so that if we can identify towns that are a bit like Sandwich, obviously not the same, but you get a group of 4 or 5 and you can see where you are in relation to those, it can be quite helpful, because an average in itself, I think, covers too wide a range of activities. Thank you.
I think the trouble is that this committee is not really the place for that kind of brainstorming and arguing, if you like, and discussion. That needs to be done separately, either through an away day or through working groups or through, I mean, one of the things we're talking about is having a business plan for the next 2 years of this administration. And I think because we have to be clear about what the priorities are and how we manage going forward. And I think at the moment we're a bit all over the place with too many priorities coming from all different angles.
Yes, so just to answer Councillor Pennington and yourself, I undertook the Town Clerk's annual appraisal, and without going into personal details of her appraisal in the public realm, the two things that both Councillors Wiles and Pennington have mentioned are addressed by the Town Clerk in her appraisal going forward. So,
Or an away day.
well, well, what Councillor Pennington was alluding to, of actually undertaking a business plan and off of that developed plans as to staffing and everything else. So in her appraisal, I won't say that go into the details in public, but these items have been addressed on the town clerk's appraisal, and this is what she is going to undertake in the new year.
So this is the objective setting, not the appraisal, which is looking backwards. This is the objective
The
setting.
objectives.
Objectives are
setting,
up.
yeah.
Sorry, I misunderstood, but the objective setting.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, the whole session is called, it was sent to me as this annual appraisal, the appointment, that's what it's called. But obviously we were discussing what happened in the past and what happened in the future,
Right.
or will be.
So if I can try and summarise what we've discussed, I think we have to focus on the paper that's been circulated, i.e. the draft budget.
Well, yeah, but you've had an updated draft budget.
Yeah,
Yeah,
which we've accepted.
exactly.
Right, and this is only an extension of that. All of these numbers that are quoted here you'll find in the budget.
Yeah, that's fine. But is your working group, do you think, able to meet between now and the next meeting of this committee?
I don't know.
Can you remind us what working group
This is the Finance and Assets Working Group. Councillor Breen is the chair.
I don't know. I'd need to consult all of the
Yeah.
members of it.
I think it is overly ambitious to try and address what you have highlighted needs to be done, and it does need to be done. I don't think it's something can be done at one meeting, just can't.
I think it's a more longer term structural
Yeah.
review which needs to be worked into next year's budget. I mean, at the moment we just, I think, have to focus on what we've got here, which is the revised
Exactly,
draft
yeah.
budget, which proposes a 5.7% increase. Is the feeling of the committee that we should try and aim for 5%? Because when it was 12%, I came up with a list of possible reductions. But if it's only 5.7, then we're not looking at much to tweak unless people have, firm bids that they'd like to put forward.
Might be a bit simplistic. Do we have an explanation of why there's that difference?
Of what?
Anticipating 12%, but it being
Oh, I
Because-
explained at the beginning of the meeting, sorry.
The expenditure is less,
Must try harder.
and therefore the precept is less.
But in real terms, what the expenditure, was it specific to a big change or just?
It was specific to an error in a formula
Oh,
that
I
was
did
then
that.
corrected,
Yeah.
which was picking up on reserves.
Oh,
in
so,
elsewhere in
okay,
the
that
spreadsheet.
makes sense
So,
now.
You know, Excel, if you put in the formula in
Yeah.
Excel,
Oh, I didn't
if you
know.
put in too many zeros, it increases them.
Oh, I see.
Rather than, Colin, can I just suggest, rather than get hung up on 5.7 or otherwise, I think the thing is, I've certainly got some comments on some specifics, as
Me too.
I'm hoping others have, and that is going to distort in one way or another the figures we've got even here now, and that needs to come back to the next meeting.
Exactly, me too. That's what I was going to suggest, Councillor Tufer.
So have you got things you'd like to put forward as
No,
savings?
I have clarifications on some things I think might be missing, some things I might,
Okay.
I think might be
it
wrong,
would
etc.
Do you want to go through that?
Go through if
Yeah.
possible, so as quickly as possible.
Well, if you can try and summarise your proposal.
Okay, so these may be clarifications that Karen can discharge very easily, but line 1000/7 election expenses has moved from 2,000 to 7,000 with the rationale that DDC have quoted 5,000 for a by-election. And it might be yes, we have we checked that that's for a parish council by-election as opposed to a district council by-election?
We have paid 5,000 and 7,000 for by-elections before, so I'm not quite sure why we only put 2,000 in
Okay, so
this
that's,
year.
You didn't think we're going to have
It's
one?
not going to cover it. It's at least £5,000 for one by-election.
that's good.
Can I add on that point, sorry, because it's the same point, that was one of the ones I picked up, is could the RFO just update on what our contingency is, because as well as sort of having that, we don't want a contingency budget and a very high elections budget at the same time. So if we've got, I don't know, 15,000, how much
Do you
should we?
mean operating reserve, or do you mean,
Yeah,
I thought we had like a contingency budget for unspecified,
oh, miscellaneous?
miscellaneous probably.
Yeah, the
I'm not sure what you
miscellaneous-
call it in
11,802.
Miscellaneous budget is just over 9,000. I sort of use it as a
Yeah.
balancing.
Oh, sorry, yeah, it's called
Um,
miscellaneous, yeah.
yeah.
So what I'm just trying to point out on the
Yeah.
back of Councillor Chuka's point, because this is one that I picked up as well, is do we want a miscellaneous budget of 9,000 plus a large elections budget as well at this stage in the game? So I'm only putting it out there. Councillor Chuka's raised it and I'm raising it as well. If we've got contingency there as well, miscellaneous.
I thought we could reduce that by 1,000, the election.
More than that, I would think.
So you've got other,
Yeah, 1450/1 Black Lane allotments, Sandown Road allotments. There's no budget shown for 25/6, and maybe a very easy reason for that, good reason.
Yeah, we're setting up a reserve.
Yeah.
So the budget will be the formed from the brought forward figure,
Yeah.
which will be a net of the expenditure and income relating to Black Lane at the
Yeah.
end of the year. So it's not a budget as such that I'm setting, but it will be part of the general fund.
So we've allocated
Brought
money
forward
for
figure.
those.
That
also.
will
Okay.
be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fishergate 145/7, 5,000 is anticipated for next year, and that grossly underplays the amount of monies we already know might need to be spent on that property. So and this features elsewhere. So we've got and Paul has mentioned this. We've got a number of assets, a number of them in need of a lot of investment, and I will ask questions under STBF. 5,000 won't go anywhere near to what is needed, and I really, the question is more a strategy question, what the strategy is for Fishergate. By putting 5,000 in a reserve just doesn't touch it.
my assumption on Fishergate is if we make a decision, let's say to renovate it, it will be based upon an income, and that you'll take out the mortgage that will be paid for by the income, as we did with the drill hall.
I see, yeah.
So let me flip that. What you're saying is the 5,000 there is only just a ticking amount without a strategy about what we're going to do in terms of renovating it.
It could be 4,000.
It could be 40,000, it could be 50,000.
Yeah, it could be anything.
Okay.
Sorry, do you have more?
I just imagine it wouldn't make much sense to reduce that, because I would imagine that would cover emergency
Yes, that's
repairs, yeah.
While it's empty.
okay. And then the broader question around assets, 9,000 has just been mentioned, 9,302 in terms of the miscellaneous. We've got so many assets on STC as we have for STBF that need investment, that need protection, that need spending on them. We've got conveniences are under here, aren't they? Both certainly here is in desperate need of updating.
Demolition.
And I'm trying to push through some corridors in DDC about is there anything that they might be able to be willing to do, but it's unlikely. So 9,000 doesn't seem a lot when the boiler could break tomorrow.
That would be Guildhall.
That's right, yeah, you're right, sorry, I'm getting confused there. But 9,000 just still doesn't seem a lot with the assets that fall under STC, including the toilets, including Fishergate, including other places as well.
Fishergate is STBF, isn't it?
No.
Oh, it's STC.
So are you making
Drill
a
hall.
proposal on?
No, I'm not making a proposal, I'm just flagging out the rationale.
Okay.
I'm understanding the rationale. Sorry, drill hall also, which we have some responsibilities for as well.
I mean, it seems to me that it's a point well raised. We are in a situation of uncertainty. The uncertainty covers income as well as expenditure. In other words, it may be that we would get grants from other organisations for the historic buildings here. We just don't know. So I think to put an amount in like that, it's It's just what we have to do in management terms before things are clearer.
There's a contingency. Any others?
Just a couple of others, moving very further on to 150 floor 4, which is Cowleys Meadow. There's an amount in there of £1,000 income. So I just wanted to know the rationale for that. Are we expecting to generate income from rents? I'm not aware we're generating any at the moment.
Sorry, in the income section.
Yes.
Yes, discussion with the property manager
Yeah.
about possible use of Cowleys Meadow for
Purposes.
fairs.
Okay, so he's got a plan, that's fine.
That was an idea of
okay.
his, yes.
And then the next one is 150/5 Drill Hall. The rent is showing, it's in need of, it's already missed the rent review, and it's showing a drop in the rent, so I'm
Yes.
really confused by that.
Apparently the rent should have been 21,600 all along. The rent review will be taking place before the end of March, but I have no information on that at the moment. So it will go up, but I don't have any information. So that's why it's the current true rent that I've put in as the budget.
Okay. Okay.
Could you make a guesstimate on that, or just leave it as it is?
Well, I can speak to Julian about his estimates.
Okay.
Yes.
I would suggest it's probably better not to build in a figure, but that sort of preempts a commercial discussion about rent. And if the individual sees a figure, then there's a nice negotiation, I suppose. Isn't it?
Yes, I would say so.
Yeah, good point.
Guildhall Square Markets. Just for better understanding of the expected income from the forecourt would be helpful. I wasn't really sure about what we're hoping here. So, for example, we've got events in Guildhall Square, we've got the hire of the Guildhall Square, so I didn't know quite the difference between that and events. Improved markets, etc., etc. Yeah.
It's my understanding that there's going to be a change in fees or a discussion about fees
Yes.
on the forecourt. This discussion hasn't taken place yet.
No.
Therefore, I'm making a very conservative estimate
Okay.
on what we might get as income if we were to make small changes to the Thursday market and the Saturday market incomes. The events are where we have the whole square used for an event, and the hire of the Guildhall Square other income I've just put in for anything, for example, local businesses using for chairs and tables, etc.
Okay. Okay.
So they're conservative figures. Could we change that to forecourt throughout, because that's what most people
Yeah.
Call
I'll
it.
prefer that.
Historically, we
Not
called it
everybody.
a forecourt, and then there was a very big push to call it Guildhall Square, and I think that was around the time when we were applying for the loan.
Okay, we need to call it one or the other.
DDC, it's always been known as the forecourt. It's on the maps as a forecourt, so it's never been square. It's not been called square. If you look at the national mapping, there it comes on the Guildhall forecourt on the mapping. So Dover District Council called it square to try and give it some status, I believe.
The
So-
square,
More romantic.
square sounds more romantic,
romantic, yeah.
you know, more grand, I suppose.
Well,
Just a final point on
Piazza.
the forecourt is the antiques market
Yeah.
isn't built in there, is it? Question mark.
I think that would come under, well, it would either be an event or it would be an improved market.
Yeah, it's just whether
Try and
any
make
amount has
change
been
to-
factored in from an antiques market that we're hoping to run every month next year.
No,
Okay, so there might be a small amount that we should be sensibly building in.
yes.
But
So-
then the markets, you've actually almost doubled your Saturday market income from 2,000 to 5,000. That's quite a step.
It's punchy.
And I was a little bit sceptical about some of that. I mean, on the Thursday market, that's fine, it's climbed towards what we want to do, to over 50% increase, or 100% actually increase.
already received over £2,000
It's all right, yeah.
at the end of September.
Yeah.
So that's why I've been
Yeah, I know I
maybe
keep
a
asking
little
you
bit
about this
too
meeting.
optimistic at 5,000.
Okay.
I think it's reasonable. It's 10 stalls a week for 50 weeks of the year. Now, I think that's right at the top end of where we are.
I would say that, yes.
Well, no, because what happens is some of the stall holders are hiring out more than one stall, so they're paying £30 rather than £10. So £100 a week is
50
where we
weeks.
are. 50 weeks
in
is,
our climate.
I said punchy.
Yes,
We're coming on to that discussion later, so.
yeah, okay.
Are we discussing with reserves currently, or what is that then?
Have you got proposals for either upping or
Yeah, I have
Reducing
massively, yeah, and I did actually
specific
speak to the town clerk about this earlier and she agreed with me. The highways improvement plan,
yeah,
the budget for the highways improvement plan was always for the administration of the highways improvement plan. So it was funding to enable things to happen.
Right.
Now, somebody's put in here £10,000. That's a bit much as an enabling figure to enable the highways improvement plan. What was that £10,000? Because there's nothing to say.
That was what we agreed when we discussed the highways improvement plan, yourself, Emmett and Danielle and Jill, down in the hub in September. wasn't it?
Right. Well,
You said
I
put
was
a
always-
marker in the budget for 10,000, that was the direction you gave me.
oh, sorry, I was totally wrong there, because the highways improvement plan should be something enabling. It's an enabling factor,
not capital.
not a capital factor.
I
So
understand that, but
Yeah, but we have
we
to-
need to
What
spend
we-
quite a lot of money on the studies. Kent County Council, you read out the cost of the studies of it.
Yeah.
And they run into thousands of pounds just to do a study for one item.
I know that, but this, all I'm trying to say is, which I've told other people as well, this council has got a limited number of regulatory or statutory requirements it's supposed to undertake, and Kent County Council are the highways agency, and we shouldn't be trying to replicate anything that they are doing, because otherwise the residents in this town, including the people in this room, will be paying Kent County Council at least a 5% increase, I can guarantee you that this year, on top of what they've put it up for the last 3 years, and then also paying for highways improvements via Sandwich Town Council. I think we need to be very careful that we aren't seen to be duplicating what either DDC or KCC are doing. So, for instance, if I put forward, I think we ought to get somebody to do the road sweeping in the sort of centre of Sandwich, and we need 5,000 for that. That would be duplicating what DDC are already doing.
So,
So,
My understanding was there were certain measures and we were going to have a consultation
Yeah.
with the public, because this is my recollection of the discussion, because there were certain things like putting traffic speed lights on and stuff like that to help reduce people speeding in the town, and maybe do things to improve parking and all of those other things.
well, when I spoke to the town clerk earlier today, she said of all those things, the best thing to do out of all of those would be to do what they've done elsewhere, and that is to get this speed watch and get a speed indicator device, which you're talking about £1,500, and that would take away 50% of the issues to do with the HIP that we've currently got registered on the HIP, to do with speeding and issues like that. And also with the HIP, we've got to be very careful, because there's a lot of people saying about parking issues. Well, parking, it's enforcement issues. So if people are reporting to this council that they can't get past the buses because there's cars parked outside the chippy on a Friday night, there's nothing this council can do about that. That should be DDC. So all I'm saying is, I think we should be 10,000 a I mean, perhaps I was asleep in the previous meeting, I apologise, is quite a large chunk of money for this year to undertake. You know, I don't want to duplicate any KCC functions.
So the
That's
issue
what I'm
for
saying.
me with that, Paul, is listening to what you say, is that if we as a parish council generate a highway improvement plan, the expectation is that that will generate an outcome. It might be one outcome.
Indeed, I agree with that.
Outcome.
I agree with
That
that
outcome
statement.
from zero to delivery will all be paid normally by parish council, not by KCC. So if we say we want traffic calming and it's our number one priority on a road,
Yeah.
we will have to pay for a TRO.
Yeah.
If we get 5 complaints from residents about what we're thinking of doing, then it will have to go to the Joint Transportation Board, which is nearly £1,000. We then, if we get it passed, have to then pay for the calming measures that are implemented. You can easily
You
run
won't get that out for
10,000.
10,000.
Okay, well,
That's
so-
just the discussion
yeah,
that we
You
had.
wouldn't get,
it's
yeah.
my personal
Yeah.
point is I've invested some time up to this point on the highway improvement plan. If
Yeah.
we're saying as a council,
Yeah.
actually we're not going to have any money
Yeah.
for a we might as well just say as a council,
Yeah.
we don't want to do it
Yeah.
and take
Yeah.
the flak for that. But
Well,
I,
yeah.
I think it's important that we establish our own priorities here. KCC doesn't necessarily keep in close touch about what people think in Sandwich, and I think it's important that we can go to Sandwich with our own agenda, with our own ideas, and talk to them about it. But I share the view that, you know, from experience elsewhere, if you have a speed watch team, they just love you to bits.
Yeah.
But
I
on
thought
this,
we had one.
yes.
Yeah, we have got one, but it's not very active.
Doesn't
I'm a
work.
member of it.
And this was discussed at the town team apparently on Monday, and they're coming up with, you're going with a completely different stance now.
but just going back to this, at the Speakers' Day, we were talking to the Mayor of Hythe,
Yes.
who put together a comprehensive Hythe town, put together a comprehensive improvement programme, consulted,
Yep.
evidence-based, whether through monitoring of speed or, you know, the things across the road or pollution, etc. Put that to the county, and they managed to get the county to pay for various improvements.
Physical improvement.
Yeah, that's
Physical improvements.
That's, yeah.
So this
I'd
is
go along
something-
with that. I'd go along with
Traffic
that.
is one of the big issues in this town. Speeding, pedestrianisation, too many cars, etc., etc. So I think it's a priority. I agree, but we need a proper plan.
So what I would say is that the highway improvement plan process has changed this year with KCC. You can all, it's online, I've read the guidance, it's very
Yeah.
detailed. Well, we were in the meeting, weren't we?
Yeah.
The onus, as I see, and I could be wrong, is very much on the parish council to deliver the improvements that they see.
The
on
capital
their
for
list.
spending,
Yes.
in which
And they give
case.
you prices of how, I'm looking at it now, prices of how much it will cost the parish council to do it.
If that's true, then it's not feasible.
Exactly, that's right.
You take the whole amount out.
It's
You take the whole amount out. If it's not feasible, don't kid ourselves.
exactly, yeah. Good
That's
point.
that's
Point.
that's
Yeah, good
10,000.
point.
Can we get chapter and verse on that before the next
Yeah.
meeting, perhaps?
Yeah.
And
Yeah, sorry, can I ask Karen? I understood that at a previous council meeting, we agreed to carry over a HIP reserve of
We did.
about £9,000.
Yeah, there is already a
There is.
yes.
And I think as a parish council, we should, I'm sorry, one of our key things we should be delivering is a highway, you know, parish councils are about that. That's one of their very visible things they do for residents. They champion a highway
Yeah.
improvement.
Yeah.
And I think it's the number one topic
Yeah.
at the town team and everything.
But it could be as simple as putting a no access for vehicles on King Street,
Yeah, which
or access
yeah,
only.
Yeah, yeah.
That sounds simple,
Yeah.
but that might cost
That's
10,
it, yeah.
15,000.
Sorry, yeah, I just wanted to say, I think what's coming out of this conversation is exactly what I wanted. One, let's limit ourselves to what we can actually achieve financially. So that's the first thing. As Councillor Wild said, if it's putting up some signs somewhere, getting some decors put down on the road, etc., that's great. But having consultations, the town team, I've been on the town team. In fact, I set up the town team with a councillor who's now passed away, Mrs. Laslett, Sue Laslett, and we set up the town team, and it was supposed to address the local plan. We were supposed to do a Sandwich local plan, and here we are 15 years later, we still haven't done it. But anyway, that's by the by. A few people came to the meeting, Carol George, a few others, and then they said, well, before we do the local plan, we need to do the transport issues.
You mean a
And all that.
neighbourhood plan?
Sorry?
Neighbourhood plan?
Neighbourhood plan, yes, sorry, beg your pardon, thank you, Councillor Wiles. And what's happened is the town team has discussed these for a long period of time, and I've been to their meetings, they've discussed them, and I've got at home probably 5 or 6 traffic and parking consultations that have happened since I've been on the council. And every time somebody spends £4,000 to £6,000 on a consultation, it comes out in the end and the consultees say, right, you need £150,000 to implement our recommendations. And guess what happens to the consultation plan? It goes in that filing cabinet and nothing's done about it. All I'm trying to do is let's be prudent and let's address what we can do. So if you go out to the public and say, do you want a Rolls Royce or a Skoda? They're going to say, I want a Rolls Royce. And if you can't afford a Rolls Royce, let's be prudent about this and do the right thing. That's all I'm saying. So it's cut our cloth to do what we can do.
We can't do anything unless we've got some money in the budget.
It's
So
pointless
we've got to have
exercise.
some money in the budget,
Yeah.
and we're here to represent the residents who voted for us. And one of the big issues with the residents who voted for us is traffic.
Yeah.
So I think we need to have money.
Okay.
Is that what the council is?
Can we move on with this? Are there any other burning proposals or items that jump out at you? I don't know if Karen's had enough from the discussion to be able to maybe tweak some of the figures on the market, on the elections and the contingency. The other item I picked up, I don't know, the mayor's budget. Paul, do you think that's as it should be, or can it be?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Wiles. Yeah, so I wanted to speak. Thank you very much for that, Councillor Wiles. I want to speak on that, and basically, I won't go into minute detail, but as I've said before, the Mayoress and I have cut back all civic and mayoral functions to the necessities, the complete and utter necessities. And Lindsay will tell you about this, so we probably get 5 or 6 requests a week to attend X, Y and Z, and I go through them and I say, right, X is the only one we're going to, because that's a necessity to maintain relationships or other things there. The Mayoress and I, because we've not had any town sergeant in the 2 years that we've been operating, we've been getting dressed in the back of hatchback cars and all sorts of things like that. We've driven ourselves to goodness knows how many events, and I think the RFO will be able to tell you the number of times that we have claimed any petrol money. It's only very, very, like going to Brightlingsea and back and things like that. It's been very limited. So what I'm saying is, on the mayoral civic side, we've really cut it all back to the bone. And then on the Speaker's Day, despite having a reasonable budget to go to, we cut back massively on that as well. And on that Speaker's Day, as a lot of people said, they said, oh, this is strange, you haven't got any music, you haven't got a band, things like that. I wasn't prepared to spend £1,200 on a marching band for like one day for things like that. And as you see here, as it's got down here, there's an overall decrease of 1,850 on there. So, but to tell you the truth, it's at the knuckle now. It's really at the knuckle. And if you want a mayor and mayoress to represent this town and do it to a reasonable standard that is expected, I don't think you could go anything lower than what we've got currently. I honestly tell you that.
So your proposal is the budget that's there is
It's the
okay?
budget that we will try and get by on.
Okay.
It will be a struggle.
Any other points to raise?
Just
Councillor
the,
Okay, 1350, the Budget Information Centre. We've taken the 14,000 out for the peripatetic guides. What are we actually left with for £6,000?
Which item is this, sorry?
Sorry, that's 1350, and it's
Expenditure.
HR committee, it's under that section there, and the salaries there. So we recognise, we've had the colour clock and the peripatetic ones, no, but what are we left with for our 6,000? Roughly in terms of hours or number of days of the week.
It's,
So I should,
50% of one member of staff
yeah, for 4 days a week, is it?
for 4.5 days a week.
Right, okay. Thank you for that.
Councillor Breen?
there's a provision of £3,000 in for community engagement newsletter. You know, we've kind of discussed that before, and I think that we've always said the priority has got to be to get the website and everything really going before we venture onto that. So
That was on
I
my,
would suggest that that is deferred again.
that was on my list because I think given the pressures on staffing, I'm not sure how realistic it is for us to launch a magazine or a newsletter, or especially when most stuff is going online.
Yeah, sorry. I was just going to add to this, if I may, as the town clerk's not here to raise this point. She said that apparently over the past year there's been repeated queries over communication with the public, and in fact one of the town clerk's objectives is to increase the communication with the public. And just in this room, for instance, and I won't name anybody, but you know who you are, there was a lot of criticism of, say, Speaker's Day, because nobody knew about Speaker's Day, and they said, oh, there should have been throngs of people on the streets for what we put on, so for Speaker's Day. But yet that was put out on as much electronic media as possible. So yeah, we are moving over to electronic media, but the demographic of this lovely town we live in is, you know, in the road I live in, we're, myself and the mayoress, are the youngest people in the road. The demographic for this town is a much more elderly demographic, and the number of people that go online at night to look up what events are on and things like that is very low. It's very low. So I think we should look at this communication thing, whether it's on a magazine or something else, somebody should look at it. And just for instance, just a secondary example, we put on something called D-Day Landings, 80 years or something, and okay, it was a bit cold, it was a bit wet, but as I said, I could count the number of people that were there. But there were more councillors than there were members of the public. and afterwards, I was inundated with people sort of saying, oh, well, I didn't know it was on. I didn't know where it was. I didn't know what was happening. And I think what Jill's done, because she really has, through her appraisal, she's really pricked up her ears and she's gone, the councillors have said this, the councillors said that. And this, whether it's a magazine or some other mouthpiece to speak to the residents, she is taking on board what you've said, and she's put that money there to improve communications. That's what it should be, improving communication.
Would the newsletter be monthly or what?
I think quarterly.
Because we
so
have
that
we
didn't
have
take
the
up too
community ad magazine which you contribute to.
Yeah.
much. Do currently.
I mean, maybe we should just look at upping our input to that magazine, which goes through every door in the town.
There are two magazines, aren't there?
Yeah, there's another one.
Sandwich Times.
But the Saturday community ad is the main thing.
And they get, you've already got a distribution and zero cost on that. And yet another one, which an awful lot of people, unfortunately, the other side of the demographic is, you know,
And also, why waste money?
Yeah.
So,
Different opinions.
just my comment on that is that I think Jill's recruitment, one of her key presentational points was around improving communications, and one way that she said she would do that was through a newsletter. I don't think in this group you should be saying we should strip out the amount, because it was an STC discussion that we had, I believe, and what we did actually, and we failed, we deferred it to September, i.e. 2 months ago, to revisit the original deferral, and we didn't do that. So I think in some ways it would be really unfair to take an initiative that was an important element of the recruitment of the town clerk and say here, well actually we can't afford the 3,000. I think we need to deal with it in a different manner. We can flag it up, but I don't think we should, for example, just strip it out of this budget, because I think that would be completely...
Well, I think we'd need a report on how that would work,
Well,
Yeah.
we did have one,
how it might
and it wasn't
benefit
quarterly.
the town.
Okay.
So look, I'm going to try and
Yeah.
I'm going to try and wrap up this discussion because I think
That's what
So,
I wanted to say
Sonia.
to do with regarding this. I just think the town clerk already got enough workload. We shouldn't give, I mean, I know she would love to do newsletters quarterly, months. She's got enough work to do rather than doing a newsletter. I don't think it's currently,
I think it's for her to decide how she
We should not
It's
be
a valid
something
point.
how she allocates her time. But yeah, I take the
Request a
point.
report.
yes.
Yeah.
Request a report on the number of hours it would require from staff to do it, and the likely costs from quotations. So, I mean, I guess that the figure that has been put forward is a ballpark figure once again, like the HIP
Yeah.
and things like that.
So-
They're ballpark figures.
So maybe we could have a report early in the new year on that.
on the HIP.
As I remember
From the magazine.
Oh,
As I remember from the earlier meeting, the town clerk said she would expect all councillors to contribute on
on a
Yes.
regular basis.
I'm happy to do
Yeah,
that.
quite rightly.
So I'm going to try and wrap up. We've had a draft budget table which shows a increase in the preset to 5.7%. Is it the consensus that we should try to get that to 5% or lower even? Yes?
Yes.
So the things that have been raised tonight are about the miscellaneous budget and the election budget, the market income, possibly the HIP, although I think lots of people think that should stay as it is. But are we happy to ask Karen to take note of all the points that have been raised and to bring forward a revised draft budget to the next meeting with roughly a 5% or less?
I would say roughly a 5%. I mean, for me, if it's 4.9 or 5.1,
Yeah.
I'm not too bothered.
Yeah.
I just have one last thing, if I don't mind, Councillor Wells, was in those reserves, and this isn't anything personal, but with the money to do with the disability grant, could we actually have a time frame for that disability money to be spent? Because it's not looking good on the council that money's not being spent. It looks like we're not doing anything for disability, and so could we say that disability funding could be spent in the 25-26 year for definite, if possible? I put a time frame on it.
Okay.
Thank you.
So that's my proposal, that we ask the RFO to take account of the various issues we've discussed and bring back a revised draft budget or final draft budget, whatever you want to call it, to the next meeting with roughly a 5% or less increase in the preset. And we also accept that we need to do some work on the bigger structural issues, longer term planning, budget, business planning, etc. Through the working group.
I mean, so sorry, just quickly, in terms of newsletter, you could easily just say, if you reduce it to 2,000 and you do it at a later point in
Yeah.
the year, there's a way of saving 1,000.
Yeah.
And we're talking about a small percentage reduction now.
Yeah,
You should, that's the way to do it. Not lose the principle, but maybe revise it.
It's always the case, once you have a budget, it's fine. If you overspend, you can come back and decide in the future. If you have no budget, you can't do much. So that's my proposal.
Right, that's why I'll be deferring, because I don't think you will get it to 5%, so I'll be,
You don't think you'll get,
well, it's your choice, that's your proposal, put that forward.
well, it's 5.7 down to 5%.
Yeah.
That's not much.
19,000 took out how many percent?
Yeah.
What's 0.7, what's 5.7 down to 5%?
Well, it's only going to be around 1,000 to
It's only a couple of
2,000.
thousand,
If that.
Yeah, just reducing hips.
So
One to
it's
two- one to
2,000 or
2,000
3,000.
pounds.
Yeah, if the hips reduce,
Not-
yeah,
it's not
then
that
that would.
The hip
So
reserve
reduce to
last year.
5,000, then we'd be alright.
2,130.
So we're asking Karen to go away and adjust the figures
Yeah.
by £2,100, either
You take 1,000 off the hip, you take
expenditure
1,000 off
down
the
or income up.
Yeah, that'd be
I think
nice.
that's.
I'll second that.
Right.
Yeah.
All those in favour?
Yeah.
Thank you. That was a useful discussion anyway.
Yeah, very good.
Right, shall we move on?
Yes, please. Well done.
Next item is my agenda. The next item is item 7, proposed higher fees for the Guildhall Square forecourt, including markets. Attachment 5. Consider a report from the town clerk with fees for events on the forecourt. Karen, do you want to introduce this or?
No, I know nothing about
Okay.
it, sorry.
So Councillor Carter. begin.
Yeah, so I'm very pleased with the report that the town clerk's done. I think this is the watershed that we perhaps should have done last year, and we've now got somewhere. It's nice to see that this has been done correctly and properly and transparently, and from the benchmarking we can see you know, that we have been, you know, undercharging quite considerably on the forecourt, you know, and with all due respects, I think we were under quite a lot of pressure when the forecourt was finished, and we said we would start charging for it. We were put under a very intense pressure as a council and councillors that what do you mean you're charging for the forecourt? And then over this year, the charges have been paid, and how many complaints have we had since charging for the forecourt? 0. We haven't had any. And when, you know, obviously the members of the public can't see these figures here, but I mean, when you look at some of the places such as Canterbury, you know, and even Dover, you know, but in particular, you know, Canterbury, you know, we don't even come halfway on their figures. So, and I don't see Canterbury, anybody that's been there recently, as being superior to this town whatsoever. I think what we've got in this town is unique, and so I'm very much for going ahead with the recommendation on this and carrying this report and the proposal forward on the increase in charges.
I think we should congratulate the town clerk on the benchmarking data that's presented here.
Most
It's
definitely.
very comprehensive, and it does show that we have been undercharging for some years,
Almost definitely.
like for like.
Exactly.
Yes, I was. I'm looking at the table for the proposed higher fees, and I just wanted some clarification because I'm not clear what the second box, which just says charity community. Why is there? I don't know what that's for. I mean, because the box above it says single pitch stall, so which costs £15. So what's the next box?
just for the use of the forecourt in its,
The whole of the forecourt.
Entirety.
Okay, well I think it would be helpful if it said that.
yes.
So that's my first query. The second query is so the next box is for a commercial single pitch. And there's no deposit. I'm not clear why not. And the next box underneath that, small commercial, and it's clear what the length of time is, but presumably that's again for the whole of the forecourt, is it?
Yes.
Okay, well that should be, it would be helpful if that were clarified, but I'd also like to know what constitutes a small commercial as opposed to a large commercial. What are the definitions? I know that with the comparatives there's no definition either. So I did wonder, you know, how would a small commercial be identified as opposed to a large commercial? Because there are quite considerable differences, and I think they have
Yes.
in terms of the
If I can
the,
help,
the price.
my understanding in the absence of town park is less than 50% of the space used is regarded as a small commercial booking that needs to be.
I see, it's nothing to do with the size of the enterprise.
Yes, exactly. So if we had
Okay, well-
feasible used for whole forecourt, that's a large commercial booking. There is possibilities that some organisations might want to use only part of it. To be honest, it's not
I
happened
see,
so far.
well then I've completely misunderstood, because I thought that this must mean small commercial, you know, one
Not the size
individual
of the
with a little
company, but
business.
it's the usage.
And large commercial is
No.
Pfizer's turning
No.
up on
No.
some, no, okay. So we're talking about the amount of space.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, well that all needs to be clarified, otherwise there'll be terrible arguments.
Mm.
Yeah, I think so.
So that's just semantics and.
Well, it's just clarification, maybe an asterisk saying, defining what small commercial is
Yes.
rather than large.
Well, it's not what small commercial is, it's small amount of space used
Yes.
by a commercial company.
Yeah.
It's not an adjective
Not
to
small
commercial.
Well, because
Yeah, and you have to, I mean, semantic,
You're right.
you may say it's just
Detail,
semantics, but it's
You're right, you have to be absolutely
what people are going
Yeah,
to war
I agree.
about.
It's ambiguous, isn't it?
so that can be added. And I was just going to say on the back of what Councillor Chuka was saying, so we're talking about a resource here, so small and large is the resource
The amount of
'Cause
space. that
indeed,
they
the
use.
amount of
And the
space,
effort,
'cause
the
we-
amount of effort.
and the amount of effort
Staff.
indeed. So we couldn't actually determine, so if somebody from say Northampton wanted to, you know, use the space, we couldn't evaluate that company as to are they a small or large commercial. So
No,
it is
well,
just on the
that's
resources.
That's what's confusing, because
I see.
I
description.
support the comments about needing to be in line with the benchmarked councils. I hope that we will maintain this system. I understand that to increase them too dramatically this year would cause a bad reaction, but I do hope that in future years we will place ourselves in the, you know, in line with what other councils are charging, because as the Mayor said, I think Sandwich is a prime location.
It is. Yes, thank you.
Okay, any other comments on this? I think one of the key things that will emerge is the definition of charity, community. And we've had this debate before about whether what we have at present is a number of events throughout the year where we've agreed the lower fee, but they're not registered as charities or CICs or CIOs. So that's an issue, and it's going to come back to us. I have spoken to the chair of Sandwich Community Events Association, who happens to be Councillor Mark Morehouse. His view is that SCEA should register as a community charitable organisation of some description.
I agree.
And my view is that if that's the case, then the various events that we currently give the lower rate to would come under the umbrella of that. organisation.
I agree.
Is that the general understanding?
Yes, it is, as long as we don't fall in the trap of maybe the history around this. And I won't go any further than that.
Okay. But £60 is, I think it's 18%, less than a fifth of the commercial rate. You know, it's a jolly
small-
good.
Yeah, and
It's a jolly good deal.
yeah,
£25
It's a big increase from this year, but actually it's still a very small amount.
and £25, to be frank, was probably hardly worth
It was wrong.
invoicing for, because it costs as much to
Yeah.
invoice as okay. So, on that basis, is everyone happy with these proposed fees for the forecourt?
Yeah, I reckon propose that we adopt the recommended fees as proposed by the town clerk in her report.
I'll second that.
Second, all those in favour?
I'll only vote for this
With
if
clarification.
there's
We will-
clarifications.
Yeah, we will amend
And the
wording.
tables be clarified
Indeed.
Yeah.
to say exactly what the definitions
Exactly.
mean.
Yeah.
All in favour of that?
Yeah.
Okay. Then the second decision we have is on the proposed increases for the market stall hire, which is on the following tables for the Thursday and Saturday market fees. So we're proposing that the fee goes up in each case, £40, £30 up to £40 for a large pitch, double pitch £20 to £30, a single pitch with a table up from 15 to 20, a single pitch up from 10 to 15. So a typical increase in income would be from 205 currently to 295 for a Thursday market, and likewise for the Saturday market, increase of 10 to £15 for a stall.
Yeah, I would like to propose that we adopt these new market fees. You know, the market is, as we've seen through, I won't mention people's names, through the efforts of the Guildhall staff and councillors, the market has become very popular now. I've never known markets be so popular in November this time of year and what have you like that. So we know we've got the demand there, so we need to address the costs, I think. And that should be for, we've got some lovely gazebos, which, you know, we got, you know, as a generous donation, as a gift, but those gazebos will wear and tear, and there will be costs for those unless we build in something for this maintenance and staffing. Then I think we're going in the wrong way down the hill.
Yeah, I'm very close to the detail around the markets because of the time I've invested in it. I'm just cautious around increasing the fees in a way that will undermine the sustainability of the markets, particularly Saturday, because that's still an evolving, emerging market. We might say £5 extra is not, you know, what's the issue about that? But actually, these are some of these businesses. Some of them, not all. Some are very successful, but the majority are, you know, close in terms of how much they take. We do need. It's a very sensitive business running a market. Deal is currently at £12.50, but the gazebos are put up by the stallholders themselves. So it's just a word of caution. We may find we have some issues in terms of take up, but I'm happy to support it.
So these are from April next year.
Yes, they are.
Yeah. We have been talking for the last year or so about having a meeting with market
Yes.
traders, which
I
we
think
haven't
one
done.
is there.
And there is an issue about gazebos. It's taking a lot of staff time. We've had staff absences, which have caused problems. In Deal, they put their own gazebos up, so it's a discussion worth having about if you put your own gazebos up, do you pay less? Because there's a quid pro quo with staffing costs.
Yeah.
Just a suggestion of maybe if people, an extra option of people committing for a period, a longer period, and having a discount for that,
Yeah.
might be worth adding in.
That's a very good suggestion. Yeah.
So I'd be suggesting, because we're looking at April, I think we should propose these with a consultation activity in terms of what you're saying between now and then to make sure we get it right. Because I think actually in terms of putting gazebos up, a number of the holders that I know, physically it's not feasible for them to put the gazebos up themselves. So it's a really Sandwich is not like Deal, which is a really vibrant, big footfall, very focused stall holders in many respects. Here we've got a much more genteel market in terms of footfall and the actual stall holders themselves. It is a different beast.
There is one stall holder on Saturday, for example, for whom £15 is probably peanuts.
It is.
But
It is.
others will struggle.
Yeah.
So I wonder if we could say, if there are people facing difficulties, we could have a constructive discussion with them about the fee.
Wait a minute. We're not to get into people's business cases.
No.
If somebody can't afford £15 for a stall, then they're not running their business properly, and it's not for the town council to get involved in that. Sorry,
Fair enough.
I think having
Just
this
trying to be nice.
I know, yeah, you are. You're too nice.
differential pricing, it gets you into so many.
Yeah,
so
okay.
many,
No, it was, I was
spots.
trying to be nice, that's it.
I propose the
Let's carry on.
That's not the council.
Claire, did you?
Well, I was just going to make the point that we're moving into territory where we're not competitive with Deal, and
Exactly.
that is a slight worry. And I was just going to ask about people putting up their own gazebos, but it's
So,
as though they're-
Is Councillor Shuker suggesting that we agree these subject to consultation?
I think we should, we're not approved, I think we should accept that this is our proposal. It's our proposal that we will now engage with the stallholders with. That's what we should do, because I think what Claire's making is a very valid point. I think for Saturdays, Deal Market is on Saturdays. Why would they come here
Yeah.
if they can't get into Deal?
Yes,
So, yeah.
I agree. mean,
I
because it's so
disagree. I
popular.
disagree because you're saying they can go to Deal and pay £12.50, and they have to put their own gazebos up. So here in Sandwich, where it's more superior market in town anyway to Deal. Sorry about that.
It's quite the reverse. Paul.
And the matter is that there's staff or councillor time expended in putting those up.
Is that as well?
So we're putting them up for them. So why should we be at the same level as a town where you have to put them up yourself? So we will get all the genteel people coming here because we're putting their gazebos up for
No,
them.
the Deal Markets are full. They have no space on Saturday.
Okay.
Waiting.
Yeah,
So
there's a
I
long
did
waiting
propose that we should accept the
So,
town clerk's
Councillor
recommendations
Carter's recommending
as they are without. The only
proposing.
amendment would be on any wording, if there's any wording that Councillor Anderson's raised.
So you're proposing we accept these without any
Any
Yeah.
change or differentiation,
Consultation.
and we have consultation thereafter.
What about my point of adding in a contingency for a small discount that people commit?
That would be in the consultancy.
Okay.
So if you like, I'll tell you what, I'll be very generous and I'll say 6 monthly review. So set them at these figures for 6 months, and within that 6 months we'll have a consultation, and the very good idea that Councillor Tomlin's put forward can be one of those things that 6 months we can reconsider.
It can be simple like that. We haven't put up the fees for a couple of years. I think we just need to take between now and April to actually engage with stallholders in a sensible way. We sit down with them and say we haven't put the fees up for a couple of years. We are moving forward. Anything less than 15 just makes it very complicated in terms of them paying and in terms of us collecting. It's the next step. And then we have a discussion about, is there any ways in which we can help them in terms of how they're going to operate. But I don't think there's any leeway. I think we should go with 15 and then review.
Yep.
It's
That's what I was saying all along. But
Okay, so the proposal is we accept the second recommendation here
indeed,
for the proposed increases. All those, do we have a seconder?
Danielle second.
Second, all those in favour?
Yeah.
Okay, that's agreed. Thank you. The next item is priorities for the committee, the terms of reference status action log for the Finance and General Purposes Committee. This is attached to the report So this is just a trying to condense, if you like, the number of priorities we had into a simple single page table. Are there any comments on this?
I think it's better. I think it's better how it is now, and I think that you know, we should thank the town clerk for bringing us to this position now. I think it's a lot clearer and a lot better that's now it's been amalgamated.
Okay. So this will come to each meeting, just with an update. All those, I'll propose that.
And I'll second it.
All those in favour? Thank you. Next item is skip over higher fees. Skip over that one. The next item is item 10, the interim audit report from Mulberry Local Authority Services Limited. This is generally an encouraging report. I don't know, Karen, do you want to say anything on it?
Not really.
You're happy
I
for it?
haven't had time to look at it all.
You're happy for it to stand? I mean, it picks up a few things, but nothing of any significance.
One thing I would say is that it's my fault. There's something that's been raised on it that was raised last time, and I think I have had a discussion with Councillor Mrs Carter that she's meant to sign both the bank reconciliation and the bank statement, and so we'll be doing that from now on.
Yeah, definitely.
I think
it's very
this-
encouraging.
Yeah, I wanted to show my appreciation to the reflection in terms of the assessment by the auditors on yourself and the town clerk in terms of, and the assistant town clerk in terms of the business that you do.
And these minor items that have been picked up, we should be thankful that they are so minor.
Yeah.
You know.
Councillor Green.
I think one of the findings is that we've got too much cash in the bank, and that's driven by Maddox. And I would like to propose that we send some money to the investment manager and ask the investment manager to invest that in a medium risk kind of investment, a medium risk investment, and that then will make sure that, you know, let's say £200,000 is actually working for us instead of sitting in the bank account, and that helps ease it. And I think we should do that, and that recommendation should go to the next meeting of the trustee, because you know, that's what we should do. And I would also suggest that we open a second bank account, or a bank account for the Monk's Wall, because I think there is an amount of money, you know, associated with Monk's Wall, and to make that clearer.
I agree with that. And that'd make everything more transparent on that, and clear the decks so everything we know where everything is. I agree with those points.
I'm not sure that's something we can
No,
agree
no, we
now
can't,
because it's not on the agenda.
But it
But
flags
can
up,
we can put it forward
Can be put
to
forward, yeah.
full
it
council.
flags up for me that the Maddox committee has not met yet. I don't know who's in the driving seat around this, but it was a number of months ago when we actually agreed we'll be on it.
Agree.
Who was the chair for that?
No, we didn't know. We agreed the members.
Oh, it's got to be agreed at the first meeting, isn't it?
Yeah. I've written to the town clerk and the RFO
Yeah.
asking if that could be arranged.
Yes,
Indeed.
yeah, I think that's where it needs to start.
Yeah, and it starts from there. That's
I
right.
do think on Maddox, there has been, to me, there's been a lot of drift on that.
Mm.
And we need to, someone needs to grab hold of it and take it forward.
I'm not certain of that because we've got a house sale that's not completed yet.
No.
We've got a charity that's not set up yet. I don't want us to be going out and saying actually we're bogged down in some self-inflicted delay. We also have got a governance model we haven't developed. Some of these things we could have picked up within the committee, but a lot of it is outside our control.
Yeah, and it's important that we learn a lesson from the toll bridge, so that Maddox is set up
I agree
as the
completely.
model, because obviously with the toll bridge, even this number of years later, intelligent, fine minds have found faults with the toll bridge. So let's get Georgina Maddox fund set up correctly and properly. So I'm happy to propose this.
Yes, I just want, as a point of information, has an application been made to set up the Maddox charity to the charity commission?
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh, it
yeah,
has?
yeah, it has.
Okay, so, because the charity commission say, I think, a minimum of 60 days, is that right, or
Oh,
possibly
No,
90?
I don't know that an application has been made. We've still got to finalise the charity incorporation document to submit to the charity commission. That's where we're at.
Okay, so it
Governing
hasn't been
document.
made.
That document hasn't been finally signed off by the trustee. We've had a meeting with the external consultant who's drafting it, and the external consultant went away about 8 weeks ago to finalise the drafting and submit it within a couple of weeks, but we've not had the opportunity
And that's why we
to
need to get the
have
committee.
sight of that
Yeah.
document or review it.
Indeed, yeah.
Because,
Oh,
I mean, it does give, one does have the sense that, as the chair has said, it's drifted, and I do think that, you know, because the charity commission, I think it's either 60 days or 90 days, I can't remember, they tell you when you submit an application how long it's going to take, and it's 2 or 3 months.
Anyway,
so we
we're-
really need to get going.
We're straying away from the
Yeah.
point here, which is the interim audit report. So I propose we congratulate the staff on this and welcome the report and accept it.
Yeah.
And
Second
take
that.
forward the recommendation to transfer money out.
Yes, to the next meeting or to the next full council.
That's got to be
Or
agreed.
to the
Yeah.
working group.
That's right.
So receive and note the report.
Yeah.
All in favour? Thank you. The next item is the Speakers' Day report. This is from the Town Clerk. Speakers' Day took place on the 5th of October. The budget is well underspent. That's a good outcome.
Yeah, and oh, if I may speak, Mr. Chairman, sorry. Yeah, perhaps what hasn't been highlighted in this report was, well, only sort of very vaguely, is there was an awful lot of favours called in. So, for instance, the Medieval Centre, I mean, we paid them sort of minimal, that for the work that they did, we paid them minimal amount of money. It was almost peanuts. And it's the same with the church, you know, for what the church actually put on for Speakers' Day, and things like printing orders of service and things like that. I mean, all of those things were done as more or less on favours, you know, a couple of £100 here or a couple of £100 there was all very, very much, you know, sort of at small cost. And in fact, as it said, some of the, which perhaps Councillor Breen may jump on, the Guildhall staff developed things extensively through their knowledge and initiative to get certain things done. So say like flower displays and things like that, instead of us just going to a florist and saying, here's £2,000, what can you do for us? The Guildhall staff said, oh, well, flower displays, well, we could do those, like that. And so there was a capital cost on the actual goods bought in, but the work was undertaken by the Guildhall staff. So a lot of it was very, very, very minimal. So I think the largest cost, which is an expectation, was the catering and that part of the event. But the rest of the event, which was the spectacular heritage side, was literally done on a shoestring. So.
I mean, I just wanted to, I've spoken to the Mayor about this, he knows my view. I think, I don't wish to make any notes of criticism because I've been accused of being negative, but I think it was a fantastic spectacle. It was an amazing day for Sandwich. To me, it's great that we've come in on the budget, but to me, the street should have been lined with hundreds of people watching this unique event, and instead the town was not very busy at all. And I think it comes back to the discussion we had about social media and publicity and communications. There was nothing on the Syncport's website, for example, about this at all. No mention of it. So, you know, it's not just us, it was all the other towns, it was the Syncport's organisation itself. I just wonder what could have been done to bring people into the town and you know, promote local businesses and get the pubs busy and everything else.
Yeah, the tourism forum again has sort of said, you know, this was an opportunity that was missed. And we're trying to say, well, yeah, but there's a couple of things there. There were attempts to publicise this. Maybe some too late, maybe too low key. I did ask at the last meeting why we were paying the Syncports Confederation anything at all because of a complete absence. I didn't get a very satisfactory answer.
Anyway, it's just for noting, really.
Yeah,
But
we've got 7 years to get
next
it right.
time we'll
time.
do it well.
Exactly.
But it was a wonderful day and a great spectacle. And Mr. Mayor was
Was Mr. Mayor.
was elected and had all this thrust upon him. So that was a great.
Just a brief question about security. I know there were lots of comments social media wise regarding security, and there was no doubt that it was necessary. But as it was a private security firm, would they have been selected by choice of 3 and best quote, or because it's quite a large cost in itself, and if that's going forward from here?
Yeah. So we, the town clerk took advice from Kent Constabulary about the whole thing. We said we would be having a large number of dignitaries in the town, and particularly VIPs like deputy lieutenants and things like that. There was also the issue of, and it's been known in other parts of the country recently, the actual people were terming it bling, but it was the things such as chains and maces and all sorts of things like that. If you bring 14 towns with 14 chains, 14 maces and everything here, it increases the risk of something being stolen or somebody being attacked massively high. Kent Constabulary suggested that we should have some form of security. The security also doubled up as first aid because all the security staff were all qualified first aiders as well. Plus also, to answer your question, the property manager actually went out and got quotes from different companies, and the company we chose were the cheapest quote. So we did undertake, you know, best practice on that. So.
It must have been a couple of £1 million worth of stuff.
And the rest, and the rest, it's incredible. So.
Okay. So are we happy to
Yes.
note that report?
Yeah.
All in favour? Okay. Item 12 is the allotment fees report. A report from the Assistant Town Clerk with proposed allotment fees for both sites. This provides an update on the 2 allotments. I should declare an interest at this point because I am a plot holder.
Yeah,
So I
was
can't-
going to ask whether you were not going to vote on this.
I can comment but not vote, if you're happy with that.
Yeah, that's acceptable.
So any comments on this?
Thought it was a good report.
Yeah.
I think we should
That's
accept
my
it.
first thing.
Go at the recommendations.
Yeah, I think we should pass on thanks to
Just-
Chloe for drafting this. I think it's very clear, it sets out the elements
It does,
to
doesn't
inform
it?
our decision making.
I just wonder what the remaining plots are being managed through the non-cultivation process.
We've got 5, haven't we?
What's that? That's writing letters and strimming them if necessary, presumably.
That's, yeah, I believe so. That's-
Is there a question that you want answered, Colin?
I can
You
Speak to that.
check on that myself. So the skip in October has been and gone,
That's correct.
with less controversy, hopefully this time. So the proposed fees are at the end of this report. I think we're just being asked to note the report and to and to agree the recommended fees for the year for both Sandown Road and Black Lane, so split between water and rent, with a total in each case of £66 a year for Sandown Road and £65 a year for Black Lane.
The only thing thank you, Mr. Chairman. The only thing that I'd like to bring up is something that Councillor Black has referred to earlier in this committee meeting. Is whereas the why are we paying the Confederation subscription to the Cinque Ports Confederation, we could attribute that to several other. We pay lots of other association things. So, for instance, on this report, we see here that we've got £55 towards National Allotment Association membership. So, if we should be evaluating perhaps a subscription to one organisation, should we not be evaluating the subscription to another organisation?
I think I have to respond to that. I think the timing is to put it in here after we finished another item, I think is absolutely incorrect. Now, let's look at the reality of this. The Cinque Ports is a specific thing on a very narrow basis, which is supposed to represent the Cinque Ports, and I've had a look at their website on a number of occasions. It is poor, to say the least. The National Allotments Association is a completely different organisation, not tasked with publicity and so on, but advice. And I'm sorry, I think they are completely different. And I really am extremely concerned that this has even been allowed to come up.
I think we're off topic here, so can we come back onto the...
Yes, let's get back to the real topic.
Difference of opinion.
No, more than that.
Let's stick to this. So the recommendations, any other comments on this before we move on to the recommendations? Seems to be a fairly comprehensive report.
I'd like to propose we accept this and as set out by the Assistant Town Clerk.
So accept the two recommended fees
Indeed.
for next year, and this is from January.
That's correct.
Yeah, calendar year. Do we have a seconder?
They're not both from January,
Sorry.
because it's the fee is an increase or an introduction. It has to be a year's notice. So it's November.
Oh, November 25.
Good point. Good point.
Yeah. Yeah, Black Lane is from January.
That's right, November 25. So that gives them even more time.
Okay. So do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Pennington, all those in favour? And I am abstaining.
Thank you.
So that's passed. Last item is date of next meeting, which is the 18th of December, week before Christmas Day.
Lovely.
Thank you very much.
Well done. Got to do that a lot easier than
Still 2 hours.
Well done.
So now we go, do you want a break before we go into Tollbridge Fund?
Yeah.
Is the heating still packed in?
Sorry?
Has the heating completely packed in?
Heating.
I thought it was working. Is it not working?
It doesn't feel cold.
Not working well. Some certain areas are drowsy. Drowsy, that's me. A little bit drowsy.
I'm okay.
No, not at all.
It was
Put the
working.
coats back
It
up.
was working on the other side, wasn't it?
I was thinking, I took my t-shirt and said it was driving.
Can I just remind you all, we're still not in Lion Street.
I took you phoned it. Yeah, I was going to say it's not working anymore because you put the coat on.
How's the,
I was gonna
how's
write
the
no,
power
I'm
on
not
your
left-handed,
device?
so-
I have